give you the signal when you're on.
All right. I call this meeting to order. All right. Our first item for discussion is discussion and consideration of priority of capital improvement projects, including general items. The first under that is COE, centralized administration with parking garage. Second is second library, and third is the youth canteen. And B, parks. Our first is acquire and develop 2 new 100-plus acre parks in East Edmond, and 2, complete walking/biking trail from Coltrane to Edmond Park at Arcadia Lake. All right. So, do we have anything to discuss over these items? Let's just start off with the parking garage. You guys have any comments over the garage?
I would say for sure that if we do go with the COE centralized administration building, it would require a parking garage to be built along with it. And that shows more need than a second library or youth canteen because it would free up multiple available buildings for other business use and bring more prosperity to the town.
Yeah, and also we have to remember we have our budget is $30 million, so we have to accommodate all these different ideas within that budget. So, any more comments, anything to add?
I think that the COE, Centralized Administration Parking Garage, while it is a good investment, I think a youth canteen would be better because it's a place for the youth to go hang out and to relax opposed to going out on a Saturday or Friday night and possibly getting into trouble or making bad choices.
All right, that's a very good point.
Would kids that are already involved in bad choices make the choice to say, hey, I want to go hang out with adults? Or
I
would
mean,
they
I
just go
think-
to the movies? Or
I think a reason kids do the things that they do is because they don't have anything else to do. So maybe if we gave them an option of having a youth canteen, they would actually not do that stuff as much or anything because they would have an excuse to do something else.
would it affect the revenue of places like Kicking Bird Theater or Arctic Edge Ice Skating Rink or the bowling lanes, do you think?
I don't think it would because those are specialized places. Like the youth canteen isn't going to have a movie theater or an ice skating rink. So if you still want to go do those things, you still have places to do that.
And the fact that the youth canteen in Edmond will bring business, besides the teenagers going to Oklahoma City for all the cool things and all the cool restaurants, they can stay in Edmond and help the economy here.
Any comments for the library? No one said anything about it. As this is the library in our metropolitan system, the Edmond Library is the largest, and it's also the, how do you say, the best library in the system. So, I mean, do we not want to make any improvements to that?
I think we should focus on improving our own library before we build a second one, because it does cost money, so I think it would be more cost effective to just use money to renovate our one that we have, and then maybe be able to spend the other money on the COE, Centralized Administration, or the Youth Canteen.
All right, so we have someone at the podium. Please state your name and address.
My name is Corey Atkinson. My residence is at 113 East Edwards here in Oklahoma. And I just wanted to provide a little bit of commentary about the second library option on these appropriations. I am a professor at the University of Central Oklahoma, and I teach American National Government. One of the comments I've heard from a lot of my students is that whether they go to the UCO library or they go to the Edmond Public Library, these are very crowded locations. We have not added another library in a long time. A lot of people are using these facilities for a lot of new options, so checking out books, reading there, but also checking out multimedia options and things. And so one thing I just wanted to provide in commentary to the council is that I do feel like we need a second library for the benefit of our citizens and for the benefit of our UCO students. UCO provides a lot of revenue to this city, both in the amount of citizens employed employed, but also the students spending tax dollars or promoting to the sales tax and things of that nature. So I do feel like a second library is imperative for supporting those students as well as the other citizens of Edmond. So thank you, City Council.
Thank you. Also, I mean, what would the location of the second library be? Any of you guys have any comments about that? I mean, as the gentleman mentioned, it's going to be to accommodate the UCO students and the city of Edmond, you know, the residents of Edmond. So what would the location, it would have to be somewhere near this current library. So, I mean, how would that affect our city, having a second library near our current one?
Quite frankly, I think that our generation specifically is moving more towards internet and multimedia, and while we do have crowded libraries right now, who's to say in the next 10 years that they'll even be necessary? I believe that more people are going to use the internet and Kindles and Nooks and things of that nature to read their books, and it would be more cost effective for the future if maybe the UCO library and the Edmond library were to switch over and put their catalogs online.
All right.
I think that his point was that college students need a quiet environment to study in, and that's what they're really looking for rather than going for books. So I would propose that instead of building a second library, we take the lawn that is in front of the library and hopefully we can expand the original library and add on those rooms needed to study.
All right, those are all very good points. Now let's talk about some parks. We haven't mentioned any of the parks. Acquire and develop 2 new 100-plus acre parks in East Edmond, and complete walking and biking trail from Coltrane to Edmond Park at Arcadia Lake. All right, so do you have anything to add with those?
I think that it's necessary for us to act because we're one of the most obese states in the nation, and we need to fix that.
All right, a very good point.
I think before we spend the money to acquire the new parks, I think we should finish the walking and biking trail, just because I know a few people who've wanted to extend that, and I think that would be more beneficial.
All right.
I also think with Hafer and Mitch Park, that definitely a walking and biking trail to Arcadia would branch out a little more from Edmond, because the addition of new parks, I don't really know how beneficial that would actually be to the citizens.
I have a question for Bob. Where exactly would the new park fit into East Edmond?
The thought is that somewhere near maybe our depot, there in Coffee Creek, Covell Road, in high school maybe thought of at Covell and Air Depot. Somewhere in that area, we have some wide floodplain areas. Maybe we could fit that in, a little cheaper land, fit it into a park that has an interest to it with trails and trees and so forth. So it's kind of in that area. We have about 5,000 lots that have come online for new developments in the last 3 years. And not all the homes are being built at this moment, but they're approved. Utilities are being put in. So somewhere in that area, we weren't going to get too far out to like Post Road. That was maybe a little too far. We don't have the utilities there. Air Depot, Midwest.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Any more comments, anything more to add to these consideration priority of capital improvement projects?
We have everything on this list already except for adequate walking and biking trails, as well as parks. We already have a library, we already have a canteen area between the new YMCA that just got put in. And then we already have an administration area, even though it's not the best.
Mm-hmm.
But I really do think that we need those walking and biking trails, as well as a new park.
Do you not have those at Mitch Park?
We do, but I think, especially over by Air Depot, you don't have anything over there. They're one-lane roads, and you don't even have sidewalks.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing for people to do over there to get their physical exercise, unless they want to drive 15 minutes over you.
I have a question for the parks. Is it $6 million per park or altogether $6 million?
What do you think?
Per park. For a 100-acre park, $6 million minimum cost.
All right, so It's 12 million right there, and we have 30 million in our budget.
The only concern I have for the walking and biking trails, that is more than half of our budget.
Yes, and with that, it wouldn't generate as much revenue because I'm assuming that they would be free to use
Yes.
for the people, whereas even a youth canteen or a centralized administration building, that would generate revenue for the city.
And what would the costs of the youth canteen be? Because that has been, an item that we've been discussing.
8 million.
Just about 8 million?
Per building.
All right.
How would we get our funds through that, though? Are we gonna charge teams to come every time? Or are we gonna do like a monthly pass or something?
I think that with the youth canteen, you would do just about what any other commercial place would do, charge for food, charge for entry. I mean, it doesn't have to be a completely expensive place to be, but after a while, that cost starts building up, and then there's going to be a lot of people going through there because there's always going to be teams in Edmond. So I think that the money will definitely come back through the system somehow.
I feel like the benefit of that would be that it would be free. Because you already have the YMCA, you already have the bowling alley, the movie theater, and all that. So why do you need another youth center?
Well, the purpose of all these items essentially is to improve the economy of Edmond. So if we just have all of our services completely free, then that's redundant. There's no point in having it, I believe.
All right. And now I entertain a motion to approve. Does anyone want to make a motion?
Wait, what are we approving?
These items that
All of them?
well, just we're gonna pick two that we are, comfortable with, and we're going to vote on them. So,
I move to approve completing the walking and biking trail from Coltrane to Edmond Park at Arcadia Lake.
I'll second that.
all right.
Can we vote?
So,
She moved to approve, he's second, so you must now vote.
and I vote to approve.
Well, yeah, you'll say it. Now you say, council, I'll entertain a vote. Those for yay vote,
Right.
raise your hand for yes.
All right. Council, yay. All right. And those for nay.
It's passed.
All right. So that has been passed. All right. And now
So you have one more item.
one more item to approve.
I make a
17
motion to approve the COE centralized administration building with the parking garage.
All right. So council, those that are for the parking administration parking garage,
Just a
raise-
second.
Just one question. Our budget is 30 or 31?
30-ish.
Um,
You got some room.
So that would
Just
switch
to-
over.
You
yeah,
got some room.
okay,
But we have some-
okay.
I second that.
All right. Those that are yay? And nay? All right. So that has not been approved. All right.
I vote the approval of the youth canteen being added to Edmond.
I second that.
All right. Those that are yay? And nay? Okay. So it has been approved. Those are our two items, the youth canteen and the centralized administration with parking garage. All right.
No, that was
The walking trail.
Walking trail.
Canteen and walking trails.
Walking trail and youth canteen.
Oh,
Is that right, City Clerk?
yeah.
Yes.
That is. All
Okay.
right. And now our next item, discussion and consideration of funding options.
Now, hold up, I wanna do the parks. I wanna make a move to approve the parks.
But
Okay. So,
Just
just the two parks. He wants to make a
Oh,
motion.
okay.
He could actually do one park. Because you're
Okay.
at 25 million now, if he wants to do one park, you're at 31, you're still in the window.
No, if you do one, it's 6 per park.
6 per park.
Oh, yeah, then I wanna do one.
So you make a motion that we investigate looking into buying 100 for $6 million. That would be your motion.
Okay, then I motion to to make one park in East Edmond.
I second that.
All right. Those that are yay? And nay? All right. That has not been approved.
You might want to go on your next.
All right, so our next is discussion and consideration of funding options. A, to take vote of citizens for 1, increased sales tax, 2, ad valorem, 3, combination of above, and B, borrow from existing hospital trust fund, which must be paid back. C, sale of sales tax revenue bonds. D, grant revenue from ODOT and ACOG for specific street construction projects. What? And then D, combination of above. All right, so,
I'm gonna say that the best option would be to increase property tax due to the fact that Oklahoma is the 47th, has the 47th lowest property tax in the nation.
all right, that's a good point. Any more comments?
I believe to increase the revenue and to bring new businesses into Edmond, increasing the property tax would not be an attractive option.
Okay.
I also believe that the sales tax would not be a good option, because then people aren't gonna want to buy as much.
I believe our sales tax is only set at 7%, which isn't that high. I think if we raised it to 10, which isn't that appealing, but if we did it for a little while, it would create a lot more revenue on the things that we buy.
But I don't think that will attract new businesses.
I think that the sales tax is probably better for businesses than property tax. And I agree with Shayna, if we could, just a little bit, yeah, I think it's definitely a better option for sales tax than property tax, especially for businesses and business owners.
Or if we raise the sales tax and the property tax, we won't have to raise it as much, and it'll be more appealing to both parties as a compromise.
All right, that's a very good point. So, how about the borrowing from the trust fund? We know that must be paid back, and is the trust fund $7 million? So that's $7 million.
In the grand scheme of things, does it really help you a ton?
Yeah.
It would be 7 million plus interest, so
That we may or may not be able to pay
Right.
back in the time
it's
allotted.
uncertain.
Yeah.
So,
Unless it's absolutely necessary, I don't think that
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
would be.
That would be our last resort, I would say.
all right.
What about the sales tax revenue bonds? What if we were to sell those bonds?
Option.
I also think that's also a last resort, along with the hospital trust fund. I think that raising taxes, which is not appealing to anyone, is probably the most sound way of doing things, rather than selling and using up our funds when we could possibly need them in a time of emergency.
All right, those are all very good points. Any more comments, concerns, anything you want to add to this?
I'd like to make a motion to approve a combination of the sales tax and property tax.
I second that.
And what would the combination be?
The increase of a sales tax and property tax.
All right. So, all for? And
It's unanimous?
against? All right, so that has been approved. Any more motions to approve? All right, so let's move on to consideration of ordinances and resolutions. A, discussion and consideration of resolution number 24-6 of the City of Edmond, Oklahoma City of Edmond banning cell phone use / texting by underage persons while operating a motor vehicle. And B, discussion and consideration of resolution, we'll stay on A. All right. So,
I think kids are going to text on their phones whether you ban it or not.
But with the incentive of paying a $250 fine approximately, I think that that would give them a greater motivation to stay off the phone.
There's also a fine for speeding, and I know everyone still does that, so it's not that difficult to text. You see a police officer and stash your phone really quickly, so I agree with Katharina that kids are going to do that regardless.
What would the fine be? 250.
I think even if kids do supposedly stash their phones when they see police cars, having that law put in place so that if the police do catch kids when they're texting, at least that would be a motivator to not text, even if there's ways to get around it.
I think it's just an all-around safe option. I mean, it's about the kids, so, or really anyone. I mean, it could put anyone's life in danger, so I think that it'd be a good idea to approve it. I don't think there's any harm in making that law.
I don't understand why you would just ban underage persons though. Like, I feel like if you're gonna make teenagers stop, you might as well make everyone stop. So it's kind of pointless just to penalize the teenagers because they think that the teenagers are reckless teenagers that need to be fined.
We all know that it's our parents that are the worst.
All right. So we have someone at the podium. Please state your name and address.
Yeah, well, my name is Detective Peter. I am with the Edmond Police Department, and essentially we're asking that you guys pass this because unless we have an ordinance, I can't pull kids over who are texting or speaking on their telephones. Yes, the adults, we already have that in place, but I don't have anything for underage children. So if there's not an ordinance, I can't pull them over and I can't give them that warning. I can't explain to them how dangerous it is and how people have lost their lives. So I ask you as a council, please, on the behalf of the Edmond Police Department, please pass this ordinance so that we can get the message across to our children and that that is very dangerous and that lives are lost. So I ask you to please make a motion to approve and please approve this ordinance. Okay, thank you.
Sir, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So you already said that there's an ordinance against adults, for adults.
Correct.
Text and
Correct.
drive. All right. and
But
so
currently on the books, we don't have anything for underage.
There's nothing for underage.
For my 16 to 18-year-old.
But wouldn't that ordinance cover both, everyone that drives?
You would think, but that's not how the original one was written. So this,
Like everyone over 18?
well, this will cover anybody that is a valid driver in the state of Oklahoma,
Okay.
in the city of Edmond. Not every community has a ban against texting or cell phone use while driving. Edmond's unique, and we do have the adult version, but we're just asking that you pass the underage version so that children will not continue to die.
How often would you say that you pull over adults on their phones? Like, is it very effective having that law? Do you give out a lot of
Well,
tickets?
since we've passed the ordinance, again, an ordinance gives the police department the capability to pull people over. If we don't have an ordinance, then as a police department, we can't pull people over for some kind of violation if it's not written as a violation. So it's kind of the chicken or the egg. I mean, one's got to come before the other. So, but to go back to your question, you know, it's not, we give out more speeding and more of your common, but yet we notice that, you know, some lane changes, illegal lane changes, things of that nature, where people go across the line, we notice a lot of that is from cell phone use. You know, it's not that we want to write tickets for it. We do it more as an educational piece. We use it as an opportunity to speak to our youth about that, as well as our adult citizens. So,
Well, you kind of find it kind of evil, because there's so many people that come to Edmonds from other parts of the state where they are allowed to text and drive. And then all of a sudden, they just hit a border and they can get pulled over.
well, and you know, I mean, I'm just police department. I just enforce what the ordinances say. As a council, if you guys want to have signs coming into the town that says this is no, Edmond is a no talking phone, that's not my decision. That would be a decision of the council. But I'm here just to enforce the ordinance.
I have a question.
Yes.
With the ordinance and the $250 fine, would there be an educational course that you're required to go through, or do you just get a fine and you're sent on your way?
You know, that's a great point. And again, as a council, that might be something that you guys decide on at either now or at a later date. Again, we're just asking that an ordinance get on the books so that that dialogue could happen as far as have an education with the underage group. But that's a great idea. I think other communities do that. I would ask that, you as a council may look at that as well. Again, that's the whole reason for it. It's not to make $250. It's not to make people pay this, or it's not just so that we can pull people over. It's so that we can educate and get the word out. And unfortunately, if you have to do that one ticket at a time, it's what it takes. So.
I would like to make a comment on a statement previously made about it being evil because we're traveling between towns. Thank you for speaking, sorry. Is that Edmond's slogan as you enter into the town is that it is a safe place to grow. It is a safe environment. And I feel as if implementing this new ordinance that would provide a safer environment for us to be in and a safer environment for our children and future generations to be in. So we would be setting a good example for the other towns that don't have this ordinance to follow.
All right, that's a very good point. So, as we now know that there is already a law or an ordinance again for the adults. No, there was not for underage. So this would cover all from 16, all that can drive and above in the city of Edmond. I see you made the comment how it would be evil. If anything, we could have signs and just, saying that, can't text and drive in Edmond, letting people know, so, help the people and, keep our great image that we have as a city. So, any more comments, anything to add?
Go back up to the stand.
Yes, sir.
How many points are you expecting this to be on someone's record?
I don't know if that's something the state, I think, decipher. To be honest with you, as a police department, I don't know what the point system is on that. I think those are given at a state level, not a community level.
Okay.
So
And where would the 250 points go, do you know?
it goes to the city of Edmond.
It does?
Going back to the question that Shayna asked, would we be allowed to decide whether we could give the ticket or take an educational class instead of paying the ticket, or would they have to pay the ticket and take the course?
Again, I'm just speaking for the police department. I don't make policy inquiries or things of that nature. Again, I think other communities, I think for maybe the first time offense, you could take the class. However, second time offense, no, I think that and typical in other communities, your first strike, so to speak, you can waive the $250 fee for taking an educational class. However, your second offense, no such luck.
I think that if we do vote yes on this ordinance, that at a later date, we should make some modifications to make sure that an educational course is put into it.
And also the adding of signs to when people are coming from out of town.
Would Bluetooth be allowed?
I'm sorry?
Would Bluetooth be allowed?
Again, that's for the council to decide. I'm not a policymaker. That's for the council. I'm needing something on the books so that we can get that education out. So again, I'm not a policymaker. I'm just a policy enforcer.
So what do you guys think about Bluetooth?
I personally think Bluetooth is fine, as long as it's hands-free.
Safer, yeah.
I agree.
No, what about the little touchscreen thingies in the cars? That whole thing, is it not like a cell phone? Can you text on that now?
You can always voice text and not use the pudgy thing.
Yeah.
A lot of cars won't let you access the center console unless you're parked. So, but I mean, that's not for all cars, but that's just.
A lot of them you can move it around, change the radio station. On the
I think,
touchscreen and all that while you're driving.
I think this ordinance is just for cell phones, so I think that's really all we can vote on.
I would like to make a motion to approve.
I second.
All right. All those for this ordinance, raise your hand. All those against? All right, this has been approved. All right, so B, discussion and consideration of Resolution 24-7 of the City of Edmond, Oklahoma, prohibiting electronic cigarette possession by underage persons. All right, so do you have any comments, anything to add, any concerns to voice?
I think that a cigarette is a cigarette, and I don't think that you should be able to smoke one, whether it's electronic or not, until you are of age.
think that it should be allowed, because I think it should be allowed with zero nicotine in it, because then it's just kind of like water vapor, and it's not bad for you. It's not addictive, and there's really no harm to it.
I think that would be hard to regulate though, if you're allowing it and with restrictions, and it would be hard to tell if it does have the nicotine in it or not.
I think that it wouldn't, because you would put it onto the stores, and the stores already have a big responsibility of limiting all of it, limiting the no nicotine area.
But who's to say a kid can't get one with nicotine from a friend or an older person?
Who's to say they can't get one now?
But if they are allowed, and so there are people that are using them that don't have nicotine, then the one who gets it from a friend is
Yeah.
more likely to not get caught with it if they're allowed without nicotine.
I think this is just a matter of, honestly, how our city looks. Hookah bars and the purchasing of tobacco products are prohibited until you're 18 in the city of Edmond. And for us to go back and say, you can't buy those things, but you can buy something just like it when you're 16 or 17, I think that's a contradiction. I think it makes the city of Edmond look like a safer place if we're banning all of these things until you're a legal adult.
Though with electronic cigarettes, it is said that it is, a way to go away from smoking, that, people can stay away, but for underage, it's a way to get into smoking, It's been proved that people say that, there's no such, health, it doesn't hurt your health. But, the statistics haven't shown that yet. They're still doing research and stuff. So until we can, keep this from going into effect, we have to be safe. We have to, watch out for the youth of Edmond.
What about the kids who are smoking now and want to quit using electronic cigarettes?
What about the kids that are thinking about smoking?
There are other products out there to help them quit smoking, like
Patches and
nicotine
yeah.
patches
And
and gum.
gum.
Legal for
Gum.
them either, are they? Are patches legal for
You
the
can
kids?
buy patches
You can
at
buy
any
nicotine
age.
gum, like there's
Yeah.
gum that helps you get off smoking.
Mhm.
All right, so any more comments, concerns?
Just a question, is there any place that sells e-cigarettes in Edmond that does not have nicotine in them? Because what I know, I'm not sure, but I think all of them have some. Maybe there's one that's very, very low and there's just a little bit of nicotine, but it still has some in there. So just a question, is there any that
Most
have?
stores have the option of zero nicotine.
Okay.
So any motions?
I'll make a motion to approve the banning of electronic cigarette possessions to underage.
I second.
All right, all those for? And against? All right, so it has been approved. And last, our planning discussion item. All right, so public hearing and consideration of specific use permit and site plan for a Walmart neighborhood market located on the northwest corner of Coffee Creek Road and Kelly Avenue. All right, so what do you have to tell us, sir?
Give you the background on this location. The site is located at Coffee Creek Road and Kelly Avenue. So it's a corner, it's about almost 6 acres of land next to the Oak Brook Addition. Belmont Farms is located to the northeast. There's a Coffee Creek Golf Course to the southeast, and then the Hunters Creek development to the southwest. It's undeveloped. There's a tract of land that's for office only to the west of it, next to the homes. So what we try to do is we go for maybe the commercial on the corner, and this one's more restricted. I'll talk about the other corners in just a minute. But we've set up an office-only district with no retail next to the homes, so there's a buffer, a transition of uses from single-family homes to the retail. The retail might be open later hours, have more noise, traffic, and so forth. So let me show you the existing, this is just an aerial photograph that shows this. We'll show you the existing zoning in the area. So this shows some floodplains in the green. You can see the homes around here. This is the office area, and then the retail corner. This is called D1 Restricted Commercial. In Edmond, and particularly at this location, we keep everything on a very minimal basis, the lightest, least intense commercial that you can have. We do not allow automatically a convenience store or a grocery store. The theory is they can be open 24 hours. This one is planned to be open 24 hours. This one's going to be about 41,000 square foot. So that's a fairly big structure. It's open 24 hours. Have the pharmacy. That might actually be a good thing to have open 24 hours, but the whole store is open for 24 hours. And they don't have enough room. We'll show you the plan in just a minute. They don't have enough room to fit their service station, the little convenience station in this, because it's a pretty small site. But the intent was to keep the office and to watch this to the lowest intensity retail, but to not allow for these special permits that might allow convenience stores, grocery stores, anything that might have a drive-in window. In this particular map, we have left the other corners not projected for commercial. So Belmont Farms has homes, so when we did this plan in 2007, this was already zoned. We left it in place. So to be consistent, we said no more zoning. The Coffee Creek Golf Course does have a component of commercial, like Kickingbird Golf Course, or even Oak Tree, where can you buy golf supplies? Yes. Can you get something to eat or drink? Yes. So that is somewhat, but it's done through a special permit, not in a single family, because it's primarily a golf course. So we do not project retail on the northeast corner. We already have townhouse-type homes on the southwest corner, so no retail there. So while we try to create a reasonable and orderly pattern that might include more than one corner, in this case, we think it's unique. One corner was zoned prior to doing the plant. We left it alone. We left the buffer. We did not project any more retail. We have a golf course developed, homes developed at a little higher density with the townhouses. So we said, no, this develops single family. And we always have the right to look at these individually on the plan. So if this man came in and said, you know, he just arbitrarily, just capriciously, you just maybe almost discriminatorily, you're saying I have to build homes on this corner next to maybe retail. Well, maybe we would consider office, but we chose not to make that jump to office only on our plan. So we adopted the plan with just this. So what they want to do is to build a store, a Walmart store. They've talked about that. The truth is they wouldn't have to really tell us what kind of grocery store. They have to tell us how big it is, the driveways, and so forth. We'll show you the site plan in just a moment. But we don't have to get into really the type of store, although that's normally done. Especially the council, obviously you're elected. You expect to know everything about this before you make a decision. You don't expect to have something that you know, you have the right to know the full description, but things change, and it may go from Walmart to a new product of Crest or something like that, and that's nothing we can do anything about. So the decision you have is that they're requesting is we'd like to have this special permit for this grocery store. We feel it fits in here, and that you know, city can do whatever it wants to in the other corners. We know there won't be any commercial in this corner. These two corners are developed. This one, that's not this person's decision. The request is for the 41,000 square foot store. It would be, they intend to open it 24 hours a day. They'd have a pharmacy with a drive-through window. One of the things that's unique about this site is that when we look at the site plan, you'll see that they're actually having to push the store over into at least some of the grading, not the building, but the grading into the office. And that's a little concern to the staff in terms of, you mean you can't get all the parking, all the building, everything on the 6-acre site? And the answer is no. They have to they've given up the fuel sales and the convenience sales that they typically have, but they have indicated that they need to grade onto the other property. Well, the other property is relatively narrow. Maybe we can show that site plan. And so we don't really intend for this to be graded out and level. So here's the store. So here's Kelly and Coffee Creek. So here's the store, and this boundary line, they have to grade over onto the other lot to level this so that it meets the drainage. There's a detention pond in the front, and that's why they can't have a fuel sales. Their parking lot here, they have a drive approach for the trucks in the back, another drive approach here, and then one here. Nothing too close, one at this location too, nothing too close to the corner except for this one. So they have room for 41,000 square foot, the parking required, the detention for drainage, for runoff, and they're still having to grade off onto at least the property to the west to get this done. They have to keep it pretty flat. We need ADA accessibility. They have to keep the foundation flat and the parking flat. So we don't make too many assumptions that we hold unchangeable, but I have to admit, we didn't think that they'd be building something on here to grade off onto the other property. So we can show you the store. Here's the next slide. It's the smaller Walmart. It's not the super center. It's the Walmart Neighborhood Market, 41,000 square feet. It's a fairly simple design, simple signage. They'd have the docks in the back for delivery. The drive-in window, which is primarily the pharmacy. And then they, this is the front of the building. It would face south. So they'd have wall signs. I think they have a ground sign. I'm not sure that's on the next exhibit. And they have a small ground sign that's 6 foot tall, small square footage. Looks like they do have some docks on the front too, or maybe some vehicle access on the front. They have a landscaping plan that they would landscape around the detention. Of course, this will be a set-in area that they've graded down to hold the water. And they have some landscaping islands. They'll have to put a fence around the north and the west side of it. So the thinking is, does the city allow a grocery store on this property now? No, they don't. Could we get one with a special use permit? So they're asking you, please approve a special use permit for a 24-hour Walmart Neighborhood Market store, northwest corner of Coffee Creek and Kelly. This is the lighting plan, so they've given us something that shows where how much the lighting will cover on the lot. And I think this would, my concern would be from a professional planner's viewpoint is we need to be consistent, reasonable, and orderly about this. We also need to be cautious of what we've kind of assumed. Remember, we've said nothing on the northeast corner. And we're going to allow the maximum on the northwest corner. So I can just tell you that I wouldn't be able to testify in court if that event occurred, that the northeast corner should not be upgraded to retail if we're going to allow the maximum usage. So if the city were to take the position, which is your position, not my position, that this is meant for a smaller retail, smaller strip center, maybe luckily maybe we might get offices, it's for small retail shops, insurance office, some things like that. If that's what we intended here, and then offices as a buffer to the backyards of the homes, but we're going to go with the maximum, what are we going to do about this site? And I think it does tread on something that is difficult to talk about the consistency if we're going to go to 41,000 feet here. But we do have, the other Walmart Neighborhood Market is on Second, and strictly, we have Sprouts, which is fairly small, that's in the downtown area. We don't have too much quite like this, this far out. But again, we don't make the decision about the need, whether this is needed. We don't make the market decision. And of course, we do benefit from the sales tax if it's approved. So they'll do street widening adjacent. There's no traffic light. They'll build a building that meets our standard, landscaping, drainage. So what you see on the site plan is all they'll build. There is a little concern about the size. Planning Commission, they did not recommend approval, but they have the right to come before the council to get your, if you have any questions.
All right.
The intersection at Kelly and Coffee Creek, is there a stoplight?
No.
They're present, and how many lanes are each of them?
We've just recently finished the 4-lane on Kelly, and maybe the intersection is improved for the approach and the turn lanes, but nothing on Coffee Creek further. And we have just a little intersection improvement, a short distance, and then it's 2-lane.
Wait, isn't
I think we
there
may have
some right there?
we may have added the light with
Yeah,
with the 4-lane improvement, or just I think
There's been one.
it's been there for a while. I'm
Yeah,
sorry. I'm sorry.
And Coffee Creek is 2-lane, you said?
Well, just past the intersection. Yeah, we typically do the intersection first to make the turn lanes, and then we'll get to the 4-laning of the streets away from that a little later in time.
Is that Yellow Road right there? Is that how the neighborhood gets out?
This road?
Yeah, all the yellow.
It's just private, it's just private road.
So
Yeah.
is that-
It says
is that how
alley.
they exit onto the street?
Oh, to the south, those are private roads, yes. They have an exit here and then one
So that
here.
doesn't really.
That's a
not really
gated.
affected by the mall.
Not directly, no.
So what are the costs of widening that road?
Of course, they pay for that. They only pay for half of the street. They put in curb and gutter, sidewalk, and one half of the street on their side. It's probably about $1.2 million.
And how long would it take to do that?
Well, I mean, they're going to have to do that before they open the store. So they have to put in the widening, the sidewalks, curb and gutter on their side of the street only. No traffic signals. There was none justified. They turned in a traffic study. Then they'll have to landscape it, do the drainage detention, and then the site itself. And so there's really no direct cost up front to the city, unless you want to start looking at police, impact to the fire. There's really not any fire equipment we have to buy for this. Patrolling, runoff, they should be handling a lot of the impact of the site development.
How much more buffer zone will it reach there?
And one of the things is, it's kind of an odd-shaped track. This is only about 180 feet here, and that was all we had to work with. And the ideal situation is they wouldn't have got a rectangle-shaped piece. They would have had some, so this is about 300 feet, maybe 250 at the least.
So isn't that where the parking lot will go?
No, well, that'll be eventual parking for offices. But, no, their parking lot's right here in the middle. But they have to grade onto the office to get that, to get the grade straight, level, to build it from an civil engineering standpoint. That, we saw it as they would have these sharp dividing lines. You'd grade your own site for 6 acres, you'd put up a fence along the west next to this undeveloped office, and then you would operate on your own, whether it's one pharmacy, one restaurant, a strip shopping center, 2 insurance offices, or whatever. This one demands a little more, just to meet our codes, a little more effort.
And I have something for the council. So as you mentioned, this is going to test the consistency that we have as a city. Where in the northeast corner, you said that we could not build such a commercial,
We've taken the position that for this owner, we can't just ignore him and say, you don't get anything. That's going to be a taking of the land, which is a problem. But we've left ourselves in a position that this could be office only.
Yeah.
If we prove that 41,000 square feet, and we'll go to the site plan again, you'll see that every bit of the land is covered. In all honesty, can we put him in a position of saying, well, you can be just office only? We've got every inch of this land covered. He will be the first to remind us, and didn't they have to grade over here about 10 to 20 feet to get this in, to get the leveled parking and drainage runoff that they wanted? They've even thrown the stub out, which we won't allow. That's pushing any reasonable equal treatment, in my opinion.
Yes.
But there's a buffer zone. There wouldn't be a buffer zone on the other side, would there?
There wouldn't. So you could make that distinction. That's why you have the final decision.
Where's the closest Walmart from that point?
It's going to be, the Walmarts are going to be at Danforth and Santa Fe. But there is the new grocery store, the Uptown Market, on Kelly at Covell. So that is just a mile to the south. And of course, keep in mind, while there has been some discussion during the hearings about, well, we already have a new grocery store in the area, why do we need another one? But that's not something normally the city takes into account, at least the city staff. Competition, who makes the decision about marketing, whether there's one needed or not. But we do take into account the pattern that we're creating overall in the city. So yes, this is a very good time. So this is at Covell and Kelly and the new Uptown grocery store, which is just a little way south next to a school. But this is part of a whole world project, and then there's commercial on Coffee Creek. So again, we project this area for commercial. If we were looking at the plan, you'd see this is projected commercial, commercial, commercial. And what's funny is this actually was commercial, but the school said they needed one, so they bought that site. But it was actually zoned commercial. So that's that pattern we were creating, which is shown as an institutional use on our plan, but, so we try to be consistent, so we don't have this argument, we just pick and choose, you just pick out certain people you like. We guard against that.
I would like to make a comment that while there isn't any grocery stores north of that location, there are several located south of them, and the main work environment is also located south. So as homeowners potentially travel home, they're already going to be passing multiple grocery stores, and I would say as an Edmond citizen that I would rather prefer to just stop at an earlier point than to have to worry about multiple areas of traffic congestion.
All right, we have someone at the podium. Please state your name and address.
Again, Corey Atkinson, 113 East Edwards. I obviously came to this meeting for a separate issue that has already been decided by the city council, but I was listening to the discussion that was going on, and I wanted to offer my own opinion in a sense. When I understand government and I understand why you individuals were elected, you are thinking about the whole good of the city. So you're talking about how do we make our community better? And one way in which you make our community better is you support economic development. You're here to make our economic opportunities grow and all these other things. I don't think the city council should be in the decision-making process to choose winners and losers among businesses. If individuals has other opportunities to use grocery stores, they'll make that decision themselves. So I don't think that necessarily needs to be part of the conversation. What needs to be part of the conversation is whether you're supporting additional sales tax. Because when you're allowing another Walmart, which I believe is the highest tax producer in sales tax for this city, you're adding another location, you're potentially adding a large potential revenue source to the city of Edmond. Think about all the things that could buy. Additional police officers on salary, additional parks, all of these other opportunities that could be supported just because you make this one decision. So that is the one thing I wanted to say. Thank you very much.
Well, I believe because of the location of the Walmart, since there's going to be little commercial growth around that intersection, I believe that there's better locations in Edmond for a commercial building to be put, because if we're only getting revenue from that, we're like stunting the revenue of future businesses. Like I'm thinking of Walmart on I-35 and 15th, where it was like basically empty in a Walmart, and then there was a Sam's Club, and like all these things are starting to grow around it. So I feel like, yes, it is the higher in sale tax, but I feel like for the location, it's not worth it. It could be waited a couple years till there's more growth north of Edmond, and then place one there where there's a bunch of area that commercial can be around.
I'd like to elaborate on what he said, Bill, about the sales tax, because I live over there, and I know between Oak Tree, which just had the senior open, and all the other golf courses, there's no way they want to travel all the way down to Covell. And if we could get the people from Guthrie, as well as Edmond way out there across the freeway, to come in more often to use our grocery store, it would be a lot better for us for sales tax.
I think that, personally, that this is a matter of what about the people who have been living in that house for 10 years and they bought that property with the impression that nothing that commercial or that busy or that lighted would be put there based on how it's zoned. And while that Walmart will bring in a significant amount of money to the city, it's just a matter of, are we worried about money or are we worried about our citizens? And that's just how I see it.
All right, those are all very good points.
It's a regular Walmart, you said?
Walmart Neighborhood Market, the smaller one, their super centers are at least 150,000 square feet. This is 41.
So this one shouldn't be too crowded if it's only groceries, right?
We actually,
It's the same one, it's like on Second Street.
Yeah,
right across
it'd
from
be
Target.
Yeah, so
a little bit of
it's not
groceries, a little bit of pharmacy, a little bit of,
But
you
there's
know.
no like sports or just random things.
and I'd like to make a comment that the super center, or not the super center, the neighborhood market on Second and Bryant has done really well. But you'll see that around that area, there's so much more commercialization than would be available, even available, not just because of the current zoning, but just even the land than what is available at the new location. So it wouldn't bring as much potential revenue.
But traffic over there is terrible. And if you have to make that commute from Guthrie or over by Arcadia, it sucks. And I'm not gonna drive all the way over there for some groceries. I'm gonna live without it.
I think that that's just based on the minority versus the majority. Do the majority of the citizens in Edmond have the same problem as you do, or are you in the minority?
That's
And-
the fastest growing area right now, I think.
Well, I just believe that who would it benefit more? Not that your predicament isn't important, but we have to think about the greater good, and we can't accommodate 3 people opposed to 300.
It's not gonna be good people. There's growing so fast over there.
All right.
But
so-
what these people, I'm sorry. What these people say, not in my backyard, or yes, we want lights all night long. And I would have to say that as a citizen in that actual same area, less than a mile away from it, I would prefer the not in the backyard argument.
But they still have a buffer zone. And with that plan, it would almost make office or businesses not want to go over there. So they might have that buffer zone for a while.
Well, I live in Fenwick, which is just on 164th and Western, and there's a neighborhood Walmart directly there. And so I can tell you personally that you can see the lights from my house. When we first moved there 10 years ago, it was completely dark. You could see the stars. There was no real traffic going through there, but now there's a grocery store and a 7-Eleven across the street. And from someone from your standpoint, not in my backyard, it is a hassle, because if that Walmart wasn't there, there wouldn't be nearly as much traffic. It wouldn't be difficult to make a left, and the lights wouldn't shine in my backyard, literally.
What's gonna happen to anywhere you put anything? I mean, you just have to pick the best place to put it.
Well,
With the
then-
lowest people to affect, and I don't think that affects that many people.
Well, then I agree with what she was saying. The best place to put it would be somewhere where you could develop commercially, not somewhere where it's in the middle of nowhere.
Are they interested in moving to a different location?
As a matter of fact, they are, to another neighborhood area
Oh, yeah.
at Coltrane and Covell.
I would like to make a motion to approve this.
Approve of the Walmart?
Yes.
I second that.
All right. All those that approve? All those that do not
Sorry,
approve?
sorry. There's 3 approvals.
And do not approve. Okay, so we do not approve. All right. I would now like to adjourn this meeting. We've talked about many great things for our great city. So now, let's adjourn this meeting. Entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
A second?
Second. No, second.